Howdy again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and you're watching part one of a two-part video on how to make this little simple drill press vise. Now this originally was designed to be a school project that could be made without casting. So some of you may want to make this just for the fun of it, or if you need a vise, and you can make many modifications on it with different size materials and different lengths and all of that. Now there may ultimately be a drawing, instructions on and dimensions for this. If someone does make me drawings, I will put a note in the description. So go back and look at the description in these two videos from time to time, just in case that happens and there is a drawing that is dimensioned. But otherwise, just watch along in the video and take notes, because I usually tell just about every dimension as I go along. Also, I have made many videos on drill press vices, and right now I'm going to show you a short clip of the title block of one that I made 10 years ago, because I need another vise like I needed a hole in the head. And I know some of you are thinking, nah, not another drill press vise video, but join along, you might enjoy it. If you like drill press vices, you may wish to watch this older video of mine. I recommend you use a milling machine to drill these 3 holes rather than just a drill press. If these holes are not parallel to one another in both axes, it will bind, it will not work. Really way too difficult for freshmen or sophomores to make, even though it looks so simple. So I'm starting here with 1/2 inch thick by, well, I gotta look it up already, by 1.5 inch cold roll steel, and the finished dimension will be 3.5. So these are a little bit longer. They're almost 4 inches long, because I like to trim on the ends when I'm done, but you can do that any way that you want, of course. So these 3 pieces and this material here is a complete shot of all the parts and all the materials that are needed for this simple little and fun project. Now here's another drill press vise that I got at an auction a few years ago. The design essentially is the same, but look at how much bigger it is. These are, looks like about 7/8 bars, and you know, we got stock here that's 1 inch thick by 4 inches. So this is a pretty heavy duty vise. But make one that heavy duty if you want, but this is really what we're going to stick to as far as my instruction is concerned. Again, this material is 3 3/4 long at this time, and again it's 1.5 wide by 1/2 inch thick. I've already placed a center line down the center, because I'm going to locate these 2 holes on either side of the center line, and the holes here, these are 1/2 inch reamed holes, I know there's a lot of extra lines here. I was experimenting, but these holes, the center of them is 7/16 from the bottom. So this is already set for 7/16. The 2 guide bar holes are 2 3/4 inch center to center. Half of that is 1 3/8. So I set the divider for 1 3/8, and I have a tiny little center punch mark right here. Boy, with my eyes, I gotta get close, so I'm simply scribing right here. Notice I'm working from the center is what I'm doing. Now you can do it other ways. There's so many ways of doing it, but there are the 2 guide bar holes. And the main screw hole is 1/2 inch down from the top, and of course it's going to be on the center line, which I already have, so this being again set at 1/2 inch. there is the center hole. Now I'm not going to center punch any of these marks because when we get to the milling machine, I'm going to locate them with the wiggler. I'm using the old South Bend vertical mill. There is no digital readout or accurate scales. The machine is pretty worn out, so I'm going to go by layout. You certainly could or should do this with a DRO if you have one. You absolutely positively have to drill and ream all in one setup. At school, sometimes I would even weld across here for the boys, and they would do all of that drilling, and then later on we would grind the weld off and clean up the ends. But I'm going to hold them together in the vise and also put a clamp right here like my thumb and finger, so that they cannot move, and I will not take it out of the vise till I am done. I will drill and ream these two guide bar holes 1/2 inch all the way through. I'll have some waste stock under there, so that's a pretty deep hole to drill. And then when I go to drill and tap this hole, it does not go through all of the pieces, as you can see here on the sample. It's drilled and tapped in this piece, and then we go about 3/4 of the way through this. So this will be a blind hole. Do not drill any deeper or you will spoil the work. So I'm going to take you through this one step at a time on the bridge, not the Bridgeport, the South Bend. Now this is really the first project I've ever made with the South Bend milling machine. And again, you know, it's not totally up to par, but we're going out into Studio G and do all of that work. I will also do the tapping while it is on in the milling machine, so we have a perfectly square threaded hole. Or again, it will bind. I can't tell you how easily it will bind. Later on, I will open up the two holes in this piece only. Notice that we got some wobble here. You've got to have a little give there. That's more than I want, so in the final one I will ream these holes in this piece only, just a little bit smaller than what I did. I'll probably use a adjustable reamer for that. All right, let's go out to the other shop and make some chips. Well, actually it's a few days later and I'm out in beautiful Studio G, standing before the magnificent South Bend vertical mill. Remember, this was donated to me by the Lost Creek Machinery Company over in Ottawa. Check them out if you need anything. So what I'm going to do today is set up these 3 blocks for the little vise again. And to start with, I will drill the 2 holes in the end and ream them 1/2 inch for the guide bars. And then I'll tackle the threaded hole in the middle, which will be a little bit difficult compared to the other holes because we're dealing with a blind hole and we're going to thread a hole. So let's get started. So if you have one of these South Bend vertical mills made in the 60s, you may be interested in this video. So I've got the Bridgeport 6-inch vise mounted on it. And remember, this has the long table, 42-inch table. And I've got most of the tooling out here already in position because I did make the prototype also on this machine a few weeks ago. And as I told you a few minutes ago, you absolutely have to drill all of these holes in the same setup. So setting this aside, and I've already cleaned out the jaw of the vise real well, no chips. And this is just a block of wood that I will drill into so I do not damage the vise and the work will not slip in the vise. So putting that in like that, wipe that off, and wipe all of the pieces off. Make sure there's no burrs. I've already done that. I'm just trying to make a point here. And remember, these aren't all the exact same length. They're fairly close. That's why I have done the layout from the middle, because both ends will be trimmed. So I'm going to lay this into the vise. You can see that comes right up to the top. And I'm leaving a little bit hang over here, so as I tighten the vise, there is always the possibility of one of the pieces, due to irregularities in the stock or the vice jaws, there might be one piece that will slide around, so I will clamp it here with this vice grips and it's not going to move. Ready to go. The first thing I need to do is to true up the wiggler. There we go. And line it up with the first hole. Or not hole. Layout line. And then I lock the table in the X and the Y axis. You can't see my hands doing that. And now these are my tools here. A center drill, 1/4 inch, and this is 30, well, it's one size under 1/2 inch, and this is the 1/2 inch reamer. There are several issues with this machine. For instance, the spring on the quill here is broken, so I do have to control it or it's just going to get out of control on me. I have to raise the table a little bit, so I'll be wasting a lot of time moving the table up and down because I'm using everything from a stubby little center drill to a rather long chucking reamer, and there's only so much travel on the quill. This is a 3-phase machine, so you may hear the phase converter running, although it's pretty silent. And always use a little oil and wear your safety glasses and work safely. I like the on and off reversing switch much more as far as the location of it is concerned on this machine than I do on the Bridgeport, which you really have to reach to get at. And now I will drill through with the 1/4 inch pilot drill all the way until wood chips come out. And now 31/64, I slowed the machine way down, probably a little too slow. And finally, the 1/2 inch reamer, I had to drop the table way down. Slow speed, slow speed, plenty of oil. Well, hole number 1 is finished, so I'm just going to move down to the other layout line, and I am not moving in the y-axis at all. And I'll lock the table, and of course I'm ready now to drill, but since it's identical to the other hole here, I will not show any of that. Be back in a few moments. Alright, the 2 guide holes are reamed and finished. I'm going to move over to the main hole for the screw. Now, of course, if you get a digital readout, that's the way you would want to do it. But this is still pretty accurate, and plenty accurate enough for a little drill press vise. And I've already laid out the tooling: center drill, pilot drill, 3/8, 27/64 is the tap drill for 1/2 13. Now turn off your cell phone and concentrate on what you're doing here, because these holes are not going to be all the way through all three pieces. And there's the possibility of separating them here, but I'm going to keep them in the same setup. But I'll center drill, 1/4 inch, but not all the way through three pieces. Matter of fact, about 2/3 of the way or 3/4 of the way through the center piece. And then the 3/8 will be also halfway through, or 3/4 of the way through the center piece, because we got to think about what we're doing, and that's partly what makes this almost too difficult for high school students. So remember that third hole does not come all the way through the fixed jaw, and in fact it doesn't go all the way through this. And the end of the threaded rod here is turned down to 3/8, so that's where the 3/8 hole comes into play. And then after I've drilled the 3/8, then I really need to separate them and drill just this piece, 27/64, which is this size, and tap it 1/2 13. Is that clear as mud? Center drill. Now the 1/4 inch pilot drill, again, I want to go only 7/8 deep. And there are many ways of doing this. You could wrap a piece of tape around your drill bit, or you could crank up 875 thousandths with the knee and do your feeding that way, or use your depth stop right here, and I've already set that for 7/8 of an inch. That's the way I'm going to do it. There's probably a half a dozen other methods as well. Are you starting to understand why this would be a very, very difficult project for high school kids, especially if the teacher had 18 or 24 kids doing the same thing? So again, this is the 3/8 drill bit. Double check your sizes all the time. You just can't take the chance of misdrilling it. And again, 7/8 deep, and I've set the depth stop. Well, now 27/64 is the next size, and then of course the taps. But I am going to, at this point, separate the pieces, and we'll deal only with the top piece, because I need to go in good and deep, of course, with the tap. And the alignment now is the problem, so I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Again, a lot of different ways. You could have had a stop up here, would be one of them, but that's not the way I'll do it. I'll be right back. I'm going to take the work out now, so make sure you have done everything you need to before you do this. And loosen up the vise. And that's the piece I'm going to deal with. That's the blind hole in that piece. And I'll lay this off to the side. Clean out the vise real well. And I'm going to use 2 parallels now, at least to start with. But I better get the burrs off of this, if there are any. Be right back. All right, there were no burrs. Tighten that up. Now I'm going to remove at least the one parallel. I'll leave the other one in, not that it's probably doing much. Oh, before I do that, I wanted to show you something. I'll put that back in there. I do like this little stubby brass hammer that I got in that last auction box. Remember that? Just perfect for setting them down. Tighten the vise. Now the parallel out. But how am I going to line up the spindle now with this hole? Because I've moved it. So there's several ways. But I'm going to, well, you could take the drill bit, and line it up. I don't like that method because of the flute, so I'm going to take a transfer punch and use that as my alignment. That's in the chuck now. And I'll move it around until it lines up. Now watch this. We're not quite in alignment yet. And I'm not changing the y-axis at all. It's strictly the x. And there we are. And I'll lock the table. And now I'm ready to drill. Don't take any chances. This should be the 27/64, and it is. Oh, that almost looks like it's a bent drill bit, but it won't hurt. Vise is tight. Well, now I'm ready to tap, but it's lunchtime, and my wife's boiling water, and I'm going to go into the kitchen and have 2 ears of that wonderful Illini sweet corn, and we're about at the end of the season, so I have to enjoy it as much as I can the last few days. Okay, here's the setup, and this is a hand operation. The machine will not be turned on, and I'm using a spring-loaded center here to guide the tap and keep it perfectly straight, and that's a taper tap. And there it is. Okay, there they are. The tapped piece, the blind hole piece, and the fixed jaw. And that really concludes part 1 of this video. These are pretty well made except for a few holes. So now we will retire to Studio B, the other shop, and I'll start working on the other parts and the final assembly. And that video will probably be about the same length as this. So thank you for watching. This is Mr. Pete saying so long for now, and I'll see you in part 2, I hope. And hit the like button if you liked it.